Gary Mervis, the founder of Camp Good Days and Special Times, is back with us. Gary, always great to see you.
It's good to see you too.
The logo behind us tells a big part of the story here. 40 years this summer for Camp Good Days. Can you believe it?
No, I can't believe it, and no one is more surprised than I am, because Camp Good Days was really never planned. It was never anything I ever thought about doing or wanted to do or went to school for. But they say life works in mysterious ways. And in fact, a week ago, I was a commencement speaker out at Brockport for their graduate program. And my whole thing was adapt and adjust, because if you can learn how to do that, then you'll be okay in life. And that's what I had to learn how to do. And right from the time in 1979 when Teddy went through 7.5 hours of a craniotomy, only to be told by the neurosurgeon that they couldn't get it all and they wanted to start 8 weeks of radiation, my life changed and that of my family's, and it's never been the same. And I became the primary caregiver. In most cases, when a child is diagnosed with a life-threatening illness like cancer, it traditionally always is mom who will put her career on hold or take a leave of absence to become that primary caregiver. But my job and career took me out of town so much that I selfishly wanted it to be me. And then it soon became evident that the toughest part of Teddy's battle wasn't the 7.5 hours of a craniotomy, the 8 weeks of radiation, or the chemotherapy that followed that. It was the loneliness. Because thank God back then, and still today, childhood cancer is a rare childhood disorder. And I'm watching Teddy, you know, trying to struggle with why is this happening to her. And there was no place where there were other children that were just going through what she was going through. She was the only one in her entire elementary school, the only one in our neighborhood. And so I saw her struggling with this, and I desperately wanted to find something to give her a chance to realize she wasn't the only one in the world that was dealing with this thing. And one morning I got up and I turned on the Today Show, and Tom Brokaw was the host then. And he said, when we come back, we're going to take you to a very special place. And to this day, I don't know why, I waited through the commercials, and they came back on the air, and all of a sudden I saw these children that I immediately knew were being treated for cancer. And they're singing songs around a campfire, and they're fishing in a pond. And so all the way as I drove to Albany that day, all I could think of was I wanted to give Teddy that opportunity. And I had an assistant, and her name was Kathleen Rose, who would have put the old television detective Columbo to shame. I asked her if she'd seen it. She hadn't seen it. I told her what it was about, and then I went about my business. And she, when I came back, there was a note. She said, I called the Today Show. They're going to send you a copy of what you saw. I tracked down the reporter who was doing a story out in Salt Lake City, Utah. I gave him the number of your motel and asked him if he would please give you a call. And to his credit, he gave me a call. And after talking to him for a half hour, 45 minutes, I knew this was something I needed to do for Teddy. And all of a sudden, the rest is history.
You never could have foreseen the number of lives, the number of families you've impacted through the years, over the last 40 years, though. That when you begin to even try to quantify it, the numbers are just incredible, Gary.
Yeah, no, I never could have imagined it. And in fact, probably over these last 5-6 months, you know, I've been doing a lot of going through old boxes that when we moved from one office to another, we just packed them up and sealed them up, trying to go through and pull out some things. And it's just amazing to see from a little boy who, when we started the Teddy Project, which was a wish fulfillment program, his wish was to go to Las Vegas. He was like 15, 16, go to Las Vegas, play the slot machines, and meet a showgirl. That was his wish. And we did it for him. And when we put him at the hotel in Las Vegas, we found out that Robert Goulet was in that hotel. So we contacted him and one of his people, and Robert Goulet came over to see Steve, took him to one of his rehearsals, so he could meet and get his picture taken with some showgirls. And then when the word went out that that was his wish, everybody started sending these packs of quarters and half dollars. So he had a lot of money to throw in the slot machines. And it was so amazing because just, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, his sister, Stephen's sister, sent me a letter because her mom had just passed away. And she said her mom wanted memorial donations to go to camp. And even though Steve never got to the camp, he was a recipient of the Teddy Project. And all of a sudden I remembered Steve. I hadn't thought about his name in years. So I'm tearing through these boxes and I find a little newspaper article with a picture of Steve and his wheelchair and Robert Goulet. And she couldn't believe that I had kept it after all these years.
What is that camp in Branchport, right on Cuco Lake there? What does that represent after all these years? When you think about, the campers being there and all that they get to experience.
I think it's the way the world should really be. I think there's a lot of, it was built with love. You know, they say the Roundhouse was built with love. Camp Good Days was built with love. It was a lot of people giving of themselves through their blood and their sweat and their treasure. And they helped make Camp Good Days possible. And for the children that have came there, the children that will come there this summer, and children in the future, it's like their Mecca. It's a place where they can be kids, where they can be themselves. They don't have to worry about somebody making fun of them because they lost their hair or they have horrible scarring or they might have lost an arm or a leg or a couple inches. We had a young lady who had lost her eye because of cancer where, in their normal life they always feel different and they're always afraid that people are looking at them. At Camp Good Days, they don't have to be afraid of that. They can just be who they are with a lot of adults and staff who are there to try to give them the best time that we can possibly give them in a short period of time.
Of course, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be a need for a Camp Good Days. And I know a few years back you started Cancer Mission 2020.
Yeah.
I guess the question at this point, with the perspective of 40 years is, have we made progress? Do you believe in your heart we're going to get to a day where...
Yeah, we will, but it has to be... It went through a period, Mark, where when Richard Nixon got elected to his second term, he was thinking about what would his legacy be. He never thought it would be like it is. But he really always had hard feelings to John Kennedy because John Kennedy had beat him in 1960 in a very close election, and then Kennedy said, we're going to take a man to the moon and bring him back safely by the end of the decade. And even though he didn't live to see it, we did that. And for Richard Nixon, he wanted his legacy to be something even more special. So he decided that we would declare war on cancer. And he was a National Cancer Institute, and they said to him that if we could get more money, that we have the ability to find the answers. So he gave them more money. But then because they oversold him, and because of his own character problems, nothing ever really materialized. But a lot of very young people, oncologists, that were just starting their careers, they went through a period where Hubert Humphrey, who had been a former vice president, run for vice president, he had died of cancer. And his wife, Muriel, had fulfilled this position. So they had a hearing in Washington. And she got up in the middle of the hearing and pointed her finger at these people that were the best in the country and said, you promised that if you got more money, that no one was going to have to die the way my husband Hubert died. And so all of these people, and almost overnight, we went from overselling our abilities to underselling our abilities, so never to be put in that position again. So you'd often hear, there isn't enough money in the world to find the answers to cancer. It's never going to happen. Or you have the conspiracy theorists that we have the ability, but we don't want to do it because cancer is very big business. But the truth of the matter is we've made a lot of advances in how we treat cancer. And today, the treatment is more, if you go to a good cancer center, is more individualized. It's based on the particular needs of the patient and their cancer. It isn't like it used to be where you got a menu, and once the diagnosis came through, everybody was treated the same. And we had 3 key modes of treatment. That was, we could burn you with radiation, we could cut you with surgery, or we could poison you with chemotherapy. And I often said that years from now we'll look back on the way we treated people with cancer as nothing short of barbaric. Many times the treatment is worse than the disease itself. But we are making some great advances, and the biggest one is IBM, Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is one of the major cancer centers in this country. They signed an agreement with IBM for their computer Watson, and they've been feeding a lot of the, what happened with other trials over the years. So now when a doctor is sitting down with that patient and their family trying to come up with the appropriate treatment protocol for that patient, they have the ability to know what has happened before and then try to design a treatment specifically to meet the needs of that patient. And sometimes now they're incorporating the patient's own immune system as part of the treatment protocol. So there are some really great things happening, and one of the biggest things, and it really came through Cancer Mission 2020, is the fact that now clinical trials, the results have to be reported in a timely fashion, because for years, sometimes the clinical trials would end before they were supposed to. The results were never filed someplace. So it was crazy, because you could be here in Rochester at the University of Rochester and you're doing work and you've come up with this hypothesis, and now you're trying to secure funding, and somebody else could have tried the same thing that you did out in California and it failed, and you'd never know it. So you'd be taking the scarce money, and if you followed good scientific procedures, you were going to come up with the same results. Now, that's changed.
Lastly, let's turn our attention back to Camp Good Days here. What do you think's next for Camp Good Days?
Well, I hope, as you do, that one day we'll be able to close it, which is, I think Murray Light, who was the publisher at the time of the Buffalo News, when we got our own camp and we were doing the ribbon cutting, he came down with his wife and he said to me, "Gary, what do you hope to do next?" And I said, "Close it." But I didn't realize that here all this time we'd still be dealing with it. But I think, to help children who have been treated for cancer, more and more are surviving each year. And I think we want to have them go out into a world where they can compete with their peers on a fair basis, where a lot of times employers and, if you were honest and you said you'd been treated for cancer, the employer, the personnel person will say, "Oh, geez, maybe we shouldn't hire you if there's," not saying it because it's illegal, but in the back of their mind, because you might be sick more often than your peers. Other employees might feel uncomfortable working with you if they know that you've been treated for cancer. And we want to make sure that we create an environment where they can go out and be more accepted. And I think we've worked really hard to try to do that.
Well, 40 years, congratulations, and here's to another great summer at Camp Good Days. Thanks for coming in, Gary.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate it. Always lots more information online about Camp Good Days and special times. It's campgooddays.org. We encourage you to head there. We'll share that link on our site as well at rochesterfirst.com.